Hi everyone, welcome back to John Florio channel. I am Mary and I'm here to talk about the great John Florio. Thank you for all your support, for your comments. Don't forget to subscribe and to share these videos with your friends if they like Shakespeare and Florio. In the last video I talked about the difference between London theatre and European theatre with public theatres, in which collaboration between businessmen, printers, actors, writers, translators gave birth to what I call the Shakespeare Machine. I read all your comments in the video. John Burman wrote, "The money-making version persists. Shakespeare as a person makes millions from tourism. Britain will never give that up. Is their pride and joy, their genius." You are right. Italy will accept Michelangelo be a group of English painters. Not that I don't like your theory. You are absolutely right and I agree with you. But I also think that it's important to give people another side of the story so that they can have their own personal idea of who Shakespeare was. I think it's fundamental to question the story and to challenge pre-existing bias and cliches about Shakespeare and Florio. So, Simon Clebb wrote, "I think you are right. In fact, your theatre is certainly not far from that reality, which we will never be able to fully demonstrate. It's a mystery. Maybe one day it will show up, maybe a letter, a document, who knows." I remember Charles Dickens once wrote, "The life of Shakespeare is a fine mystery and I tremble every day lest something turn up." But in the meantime, I want to better analyze this Shakespeare machine I talked about in the last video, this group of collaborators. So Shakespeare Friends, essentially, people who work in Shakespeare team, writers, actors, printers, translators, who discussed different ideas. For example, the School of Night, in which many aristocrats, writers, Florio too, with Giordano Bruno, they discussed theories they were able to discuss openly. So they mainly gathered to discuss theories that were changing society, the world in which they lived. But these people who gathered around Shakespeare didn't just discuss these avant-garde theories about the infinite universe, magic, occultism, Rosicrucianism. They also gathered and wrote theatre for political aims, for political projects. Theatre was also done for propaganda. It was like essentially social media today. When a Trump or a Biden share TikTok, tweets, videos, they do it to gain substantial number of votes. And theatre was perceived as a tool to gain votes, to gain control of the masses. Thousands of people who went to see plays, and so they were instruments for the Queen to have control over people. For example, Richard II of Shakespeare, in which Robert Devereux played a significant role in the history of this play. What happened? It happened that in 1661 the Essex Robert Devereux, along with a group of supporters, for example Henry Wriothesley, the Earl of Southampton, decided to overthrow Queen Elizabeth I. This was called the Essex Rebellion. Their plot failed and Essex was executed and the Southampton was imprisoned. And this event had a direct impact on Shakespeare's play Richard II, because this play contained topics about the Essex Rebellion, political intrigue, power struggles, the deposition of a monarch. So the plays were also written for political aims and projects, and they were controlled by the Queen entourage. Now, this group of friends around Shakespeare, we don't have to think about Shakespeare group as a writer who constantly write together. We don't have to imagine a room in which there are Ben Jonson, John Florio, Shakespeare, Samuel Daniel writing together side by side. No, the process was much more complex. Why? Because it was primarily managed by the theatre companies. And I'll show you how. Of course, writers were influenced by each other. They used their friends' plots. They rewrote old plays written by other colleagues. But the writing part wasn't something that they did all together and immediately. Sometimes it was done in different periods, by different hands. Why? Because it was the theatre company who asked the plays to be revised and rewritten for that specific event at court, for that specific moment, for a special event. So the theatre company had the control over them. Remember, copyright didn't exist. So it was the theatre company who decided how the plays had to be written, when and why. Because they had the control over the plays, not the writers. So it was the theatre company who shaped the writing process for the play. It was later that they decided these Shakespeare plays had to be rewritten for a literary legacy. Later, first folio 6023. But at first, they were mainly taught for the stage. So it was the theatre company who had the control over them. Now, when writing the plays, the problem par excellence of Shakespeare plays is, do you know which is the main problem about Shakespeare plays? Can you guess which is this problem? The main problem about Shakespeare plays is the main problem about Shakespeare plays is the alternation between prose and verse. Shakespeare's plays are halfway between the actor's improvisation and the art of a master and the genius of the words. Why this alternation? Because a huge role in Shakespeare's plays was played by the actors. In Shakespeare's plays, there are some passages that are generic, abstract, divorced from any situation or context, which is why they can be placed in any context, because they are jokes for their own sake, not placed in any context of the plot. But sometimes they also gives rise to strange, ugly results. Why? Because they are the improvisation of the actors. Bloopers, the result of personal initiatives by the actors. This atmosphere is not poetic, is theatrical, is scenic, which means that Shakespeare's plays were primarily written for the stage, primarily written to be performed at theatre. This is why they have a strong actorly root. That's when we see the alternation between different hands. The hands of the actors with jokes, sometimes base vulgar improvisation, and a line later in the play, prose, the style of a poet, of a great writer. Two different hands. So, low and high together in Shakespeare's plays. So this is an aspect that sometimes is overlooked because people are so obsessed to prove that it was Shakespeare who wrote the play. No, it was Marlowe who wrote the play. No, it was the Countess of Pembroke who wrote the play. The plays were mainly the result of a collaboration between actors and writer. And Shakespeare was an actor. This is why we have this result in some plays in which it's very clear that we find jokes for their own sake that have nothing to do with the plot. Because Shakespeare's plays, before becoming stories for the readers with an expensive publication, the first folio, for a higher level of readers, they were primarily plays for the audience, for people who didn't care about alliteration. This is the heart of Shakespeare plays. It's an aspect that sometimes is overlooked because people are so busy trying to prove that it was Oxford, no, it was Marlowe, no, it was the other writer. And this is why I call it the Shakespeare Machine, because it's a complex result of different people collaborating with each other. And primarily with the actors, with the theatre companies. When in First Fruits in 1578, Florio's first work, we find dedications written by the whole company of the Leicester Man, the theatre company Robert Dudley. We find dedications written by Richard Tarleton, John Bentley, Robert Wilson. Why they wrote dedications to Florio? Because Florio collaborated with them. He was the hand who rewrote their plays that certainly contained that Italianate color that Dudley wanted for the court. That's just an example to show you how Shakespeare plays were later written and performed. So, to sum up, the theatre company had a control over the plays. They were primarily written by a group of people in different periods by different hands. But these plays needed one main hand. Why? For the homogeneity of the text. So it's time to discuss the famous editor, because when we talk about this collaboration, we cannot just imagine pieces of puzzle all together, because it doesn't make any sense. These plays had a main hand, someone who took care of revising, editing and correcting the plays. And it also explains the prose part, typical of poetry. Someone with a high level of instruction, who knew at least Italian, Spanish, French and Latin by heart. While it is true that not all Shakespeare plays exhibit uniformity, it is also true that every work contains its own consistency in style and structure. For example, Hamlet, the famous Hamlet monologue, didn't exist in the first editions of the play. And if it existed, it was pretty ugly. The plays had a different version before the publication of the first folio. And they didn't contain all the magic of the words, the sound, the rhythm, that obsession towards words and language. Because only later a magic hand polished, revised and rewrote the plays as we read them today. That's why it's important to say that Shakespeare plays were mainly written for the stage and were at first the result of collaborative works between actors and writers. And they were written mostly for the audience. Only later, when the plays began to be staged at court and to be published in the first folio, they were rewritten, edited by a genius of the word. They gave them that color, that unique savor that we know today as Shakespeare style, Shakespeare trademark. If you want to see this difference between prose and verse in Shakespeare's plays, or the difference between the old versions of the plays with the plays published in the first folio, I can make you a video just about it so that I can show you some examples and show you the difference sometimes in just one page about verse and prose. Now, the editor who corrected everything. Who was the main hand? Let's vote in the comments and stay resolute. Bye!